Sotah Daf Zayin begins with a small Mishnah discussing the process by which a man brings his wife to the Beis Din, to the Sanhedrin, in order to drink the Sotah water. The Gemara will discuss the machlokes, which we'll see in the Mishnah, as to whether or not the husband is trusted, or does he have to bring witnesses along to make sure that he's not together with her on the way. The Gemara will try to learn two halachas out of it and then analyze one of the opinions, contradiction as to what his source is. Then we'll get to the next Mishnah, which will discuss the actual process in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Azara, and the Gemara will comment on the Mishnah line by line. So let's begin. The Gemara says, what is the process? So once the Kinui and the Sira happened, and they went to the local Beis Din, and the Beis Din said, okay, we've established the Kinui and Sira happened, it's time to go to Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim to actually do the Sotah process, have her drink the water, and establish what her status is. So they send them and they start to travel. And I have a machlokes, can they go alone? According to Rabbi Yehuda, the husband is trusted to go along with her, and we're not afraid that he's going to do a ma'aseh bia, which would ruin the power of the waters to check her. According to Tanna Kama, we don't trust the husband here, and we send along two Talmidei Chachamim along with them. So the Gemara makes two observations from the Tanna Kama's opinion first, and the Gemara tries to bring a proof from each of them to halacha said by Rav. The first is that why do we have to have three people together? The husband who is forbidden to be with her, and two witnesses who are obviously not her husband are forbidden to be with her. Why do you have to have three? Obviously, the reason is because of Rav's halacha that there is an Isser Yichud on two men and a woman. Now, inside one city, that's for sure not the case. Two men are considered to be protecting each other. They're going to guard on each other, make sure they don't do anything wrong, unless of course they're prutzim, unless of course they are unscrupulous characters, but we're not talking about that here. We have Talmidei Chachamim, but we're saying here you have to have three. So Rav said if you're on the road you have to have three, because on the road if you have only two, somebody's going to need the bathroom, somebody's going to he's going to fall asleep, whatever it is. One cannot be trusted to be available all the time, and if you have one that goes away briefly, the other one will end up being in yichud with a woman he's forbidden to. So therefore you have to have three, so that if one needs to go to the bathroom or something, you at least have two. Says Gemara, this is a right to that, because that's why you have three people here. Gemara says, no, that's not necessarily the pshat. It could be that the reason you have to have two Talmidei Chachamim is because you need witnesses. You need to have witnesses to testify that the husband was with her, and therefore the Sanhedrin is not going to let them drink. If you don't have two kosher witnesses to say that testimony, we won't be able to establish that. Okay, now the Gemara says it's a second thing, and that's you have to have Talmidei Chachamim here. We said, why Talmidei Chachamim? Why don't you just have three regular people? That way you'll know that there is no problem, because you have no yichud, and it's clear. Obviously, the reason is, the Gemara wants to learn, because prutim, if you have people who are unscrupulous, three is not enough. Even 10, if they're unscrupulous people, there's no shear. So the Gemara says you can even see that, because Rav said was an incident that happened where 10 people wanted to do an event with a woman, so they carried her out of the city in a coffin, pretending that she had died, and they were going to go bury her outside the city, and they went outside the city. So you see, if you're talking about putzim, any number could be over and over. Gemara says that's a right to Rav. That's why you have to have Talmidei Chachamim and not regular people here. Gemara says no, it's not a raya. Could be the reason why you need Talmidei Chachamim is because they have to warn them. If to warn them is going to be an avera, in order to give a hasra properly, you have to be able to quote the pasuk, the source that it's usher. So for that, you have to have Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, now the Gemara goes to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda, according to we have a brisa that explains the dispute between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham. The brisa says, Rabbi Yehuda says, there's a kal v'chomer. A husband is not suspected of doing an avera with his wife when she's in nida. His wife is a nida zaser to him, and we leave them alone together. We don't have to have any shmira. So nida, which is an isser chomer, which is kares, we trust the husband. So certainly, when his wife is a saita, which is only a lav, we trust the husband. So Gemara says, what did the Rabbana answer to that? They say it's exactly the point. Nida, which is an Isser Chomer, we trust the husband, because it's an Isser Chomer, he's not going to do it. Saita, which is a light Isser, so he's not going to be so scared of it, and he's going to violate that Isser. Right, now the Gemara's question is, Rabbi Yehuda, according to his brisa, brought a kal v'chomer, but we have a different brisa where Rabbi Yehuda brought a pasuk, and not a kal v'chomer. So kal v'chomer in that brisa was brought by someone else. It was brought by Rabbi Yossi. So let's see the brisa. The brisa there brings three opinions as to what the halacha is. The Tanna Kama says, you learn out of a pasuk, says v'hevi ishes ishe el kayin, that the husband brings his wife to the kayin in the Beis Hamikdash. The husband is the one who brings it. The brisa, you only have to have the husband, no one else has to bring it. And the Rabbi Yehuda says the same drasha. So you have the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Yehuda is having the same drasha. That's the contradiction, because we have Rabbi Yehuda bring a kavachimer. The difference is that the Chachamim say that midirabanan he's not trusted, and midirabanan Talmid Chacham have to go along. And the Gemara asks what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanna Kama. The Gemara answers the difference is Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of that derabanan, and the Tanna Kama has that derabanan. Now Rabbi Yosef's opinion here is to say the kavachimer, and that he says the kavachimer that Rabbi Yehuda said that if a husband is trusted for nida, which is iser kares, he should certainly be trusted for Sotah, which is just a lav. Here the Chachamim answer something else. They don't answer that that's exactly the problem. They answer that no, Sotah is more of a problem because Sotah there may never be a heter for. Nida will be a heter if he waits long enough. He'll have a heter, so therefore he's able to control himself for the meantime. Sotah, if she never drinks, which may not happen, she may refuse to drink, then he'll never have a heter. And therefore, he has a very strong yetzer, and therefore he's not trusted. Now, the Gemara asks why here does Rabbi Yehuda bring a pasuk, and in the previous brayso, Rabbi Yehuda brings a kavachomer, which is his real source. The Gemara says first he brought the kavachomer, and then when the Chachamim answered him, he brought the pasuk, and therefore it's first he had the one, and then he had the other. That's why you have two different things in two different braysos. Now begin the next Mishnah, which continues describing the process. So the Mishnah says they brought her up to the Bezin Agadol, the Sanhedrin, which was in Yerushalayim, and along the way they threatened her. And they threatened her in all kinds of ways, the same ways that they threaten witnesses who are going to give testimony about capital punishment. And Rashi explains how they threaten her, and it's all explained out in other Masechtas. So the Gemara continues here with the other things. The Mishnah says that they say to her, my daughter, many things are caused by wine, many things are caused by too much laughter, many things are caused by too much childishness or bad neighbors. And therefore, it could be that you made a mistake, and mistakes happen. But take care and do for the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name that it shouldn't be erased in the water, which happens when they prepare the Sotah water. And they continue, they tell her things the Mishnah describes as things which are not proper to be heard. That means they talk about other Gedolei Olim before her who did Averas, and they admitted, and everything was fine. And therefore we're trying to encourage her to admit as well, and not to insist that she's innocent if she really was not. Now, she hears them, and her father's house hears them. It's not really for it to be heard. Now, if she admits and she says, I am Tamea, so they write a receipt for her ksuba so that she can't collect it anymore, and she can go. She's free to go. She's not free to be with her husband any longer. She doesn't get her ksuba, and that's it. The case is over. If, however, she insists she's tahora, then they bring her up to the eastern gate of the Azara, to the archway, which is called Shar Nicanor. The doors there are called the Nicanor gate. Now, that area is a middle level. It has Kedushas Azara to the extent that you can have things which have to be in the Azara allowed to be there. However, it doesn't have Kedushas Azara to the point that someone who's Tameh is not allowed to be there. That's why it's a place where you're Metaher, a woman who gave birth. The Gemara will explain what that's about. You're also Metaher, a Matzara. Matzara has to be able to stick his foot into the Azara itself, so he stands there in this archway in the gate of the Nicanor doors. Now, then the Kohen comes and he takes hold of her garment by the neck and he rips it. If it's a big rip or it's a small rip, he does the rip, but he does the rip until he exposes her heart, and he undoes her hair so that it falls down. And the point of all this is so that she should be degraded, and in the degraded state she's more likely to admit. Rabbi Yehuda says if she was beautiful in her heart or in her hair, that would not help, that would not degrade her, and therefore they didn't do that. Now, if she was wearing white clothing, she put on black clothing. If she had gold or jewelry, she took those off. It's all part of the process to make her feel degraded and to diminish her self-confidence so that she should admit if she really was guilty. And they do all these things, again, the Mishnah spells that again, to establish the degradation. Then they bring an Egyptian rope and they tie it above her chest so that the clothing shouldn't fall down too far and expose too much of her. Anybody who wants to look at her is allowed to look at her, except for her servants, her male and female servants. And the reason is because if she sees them, that'll restore her confidence because she has dominion over them. Now the Mishnah contradicts itself. The Gemara will discuss it, and it says that women are allowed to come and see her. All the women come and see so that they could learn not to learn from her ways because they see what ended up happening to her. We now begin the Gemara, which begins analyzing the Mishnah. The Gemara's first question is, the Mishnah began by saying that it has to go to the Bezin Hagadol in Yerushalayim, that is the Sanhedrin of 71. The Gemara says, how do you know that? How do you know it has to be there? So we understand she has to go to Yerushalayim because the pasuk says clearly that it has to be Lifnei Hashem, so that's in Yerushalayim. But there are 3 Batei Din in Yerushalayim. There's the Bezan Agadol of 71. There are 2 Batei Din in the Beis Hamikdash of 23. So maybe it means one of them. Somewhere says no, because the Torah, we use the word Torah in describing this. It says V'asla Kohen is called HaTorah. And in the parsha of Zakin Mamre, a rebellious elder sage, it also says Al Pi HaTorah Sher Yerucha. That links to 2. Just like the parsha of Zakin Mamre needs the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin of 71 judges, this case also requires the Beis Din, the Sanhedrin of 71 judges. Next thing Mara asks that our Mishnah seems to contradict the Brisa. Our Mishnah says that they threatened her to try to get her to admit. But the Brisa says that just like they threatened her to get her to admit, they also threatened her and tried to scare her into drinking the water and to have her not admit. And the Brisa explains that we say to her, if you know that you're pure, so rely on your faith. Have faith that you are pure, and don't be afraid of the water, because the water is like water on an open wound. Just like water on a wound, if there's on skin, if the skin is healthy, it's not going to cause any harm. So it'll only cause harm if there's a problem there. So too, these waters are only going to cause you harm if something happened. But if you know that you're clean, so don't worry about it. So how come our Mishnah doesn't say that? So the Gemara answers, because our Mishnah is talking before they created the water, before they already erased the name of Hashem. We're trying to avoid erasing the name of Hashem for no reason. So we say to her, don't make us do this, admit. Once, however, we erase the water, so we don't have the problem anymore, now we would like to use it and return her to her husband. If she's going to refuse to drink, she'll be us to her husband. We would rather permit her to her husband. So we say, don't be afraid of the water once we've already made it. Next, the Gemara discusses that, which it says we say in front of her things that she shouldn't hear. The Gemara says that's things of Haggadah, we tell her over, things that happened with the Ksuvim Rishainim, the original Nevi'im, and the original things that are written. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Eiv, Asher Chachamim Yagidu V'lo Yichichadu Me'avaisam, that the Chachamim were willing to speak, and they were willing to admit to what they did, and were not afraid of their fathers. It refers to Yehuda, who admitted that he had been with Tamar and he was not embarrassed. And what happened to him in the end is that he inherited Olam Haba. Reuven admitted that he had moved the bed of Yaakov and he wasn't embarrassed. What happened for him? In the end, he inherited Olam Haba. The Gemara asks, what's their reward? The Gemara says, what do you mean reward? We just said the reward. He inherited Olam Haba. The Gemara says, no, what was their reward in this world? There's always a reward in this world. So the Gemara says, Lehem Levadim Nesna Oretz, a pasuk in Eiv, they themselves earned Eretz Yisrael greater than the other ones, because Yehuda received the kingship over Eretz Yisrael, and Reuven received the first chelik and a chelik in Ever Yarden. So now the Gemara says, how do you know that they admitted? Where do you see that Yehuda and Reuven admitted? So Yehuda we know. Yehuda, it says straight out in the Psukim when they wanted to bring Tamar out to be burned. So she sent him his possessions that she had taken from him, and Yehuda admitted, and he said, I recognize them, and it's for me. They are for me, and it's for me. She's pregnant from me. So he admitted straight out. But where do you see that Reuven ever admitted? So Gemara says, you see it because like Shmuel Bar Nachmani said in Rav Yechanan, when Moshe gave the brachas to Reuven, it says, Yechi Reuven v'yamos, Reuven should live, and right after that it says, Vizos Yehuda, and this is for Yehuda. It doesn't say about anybody else Vizos. What does that mean? It means that the only reason that Reuven ever admitted is because he learned from Yehuda. And the Gemara explains, all the years of Klal Yisrael were in the midbar, they had all the coffins, all the remains of all the shvatim with them, and the bones of Yehuda were rolling around in the earth, meaning he wasn't zeicher to go into Olam Haba. And that was because of the Avera, or the Maisa that he did with Tamar. So the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu was mispal for him, and he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, who caused that Reuven admitted to his Avera, to his error as it were? It was Yehuda. When he saw what Yehuda did, that's when he did. And we have a Medrash Tanchuma who says that as soon as Reuven saw that Yehuda admitted, he admitted as well that he had moved Yaakov's sleeping quarters. So as soon as it happened, Hashem heard the sound of Yehuda. Shama Hashem kol Yehuda, as it says in the Psukim there, and he heard his Eivarim, that they were knocking around, and he returned them to the place in which he belongs. But he still hadn't gone up to Yeshiva Shamayla. So that's the next pasuk. Ve'el Amoy Tivianu went up to Yeshiva Shamayla. But it's still, you don't know that he was able to talk in learning with the other Chachamim and be successful in his arguments. So in that it says, Yadav Ravloi, that he had strength in his hand, that is that his arguments were strong. But you still don't know that the halacha was established like him. So that you have the next words, ve'ezer mitzaref tehiyah, that he had help and the halacha was established like him. So now the Gemara asks, I understand why Yehuda was made, that was to save Tamar's life, but why did Reuven admit? What was the point in that? And Rav Sheshes even says that it's considered to be rude and chutzpah, somebody who admits to an avera that he did in public. It shows that he's not embarrassed and he doesn't care. So Gemara says, no, there was a reason he admitted, and that's because otherwise there would have been suspicion on the other brothers that they did it. Like this, he cleared them of any suspicion. Okay, moving on, the Gemara says that if she says Tmeya Ani, if she admits, they write a receipt so that the husband cannot collect, so that she cannot collect the ksuba from her husband. So the Gemara says there's a machlekes tanaim when a ksuba is not owed if you tear up the ksuba or you create a receipt to counteract the ksuba and you give that to the husband. And the machlekes is based on, do we make the husband have to watch that receipt? What if he loses that receipt? He could lose his money. Seriously, clearly you write a receipt, so it's a raya. Someone says, no, it's not a raya. Change the language. It should say that you tear it up. Someone says, what do you mean? But it doesn't say tear it up. It says shoveris. It says that you give the shover. So the Rava says we're talking about a place where you don't write a ksuba. You can collect the ksuba without producing a written shtar at all. It won't help to tear it up. First of all, there is none. And even if there is none, even if you tear it up, you can collect without one. So that's why you have to write a shover to prevent her from collecting that